As far as I was aware, a second opinion was a second opinion. And what I obviously have learnt subsequently through the experience is that cancer affects all sorts of things, and to decide what the best thing to do about it is you need a number of different experts. In my case, the problem was I had a radiologist report that thought that my tumours had grown into my diaphragm and other places and that they were inoperable. And the surgeon had agreed with that, obviously on the basis of that report. So it wasn't so much a cancer specialist, but I needed a cancer radiologist and obviously other surgeons, and you know, it's a group of different specialisms that you need sometimes, especially when you've got a not entirely typical or straightforward case, which was my position.
International expert cancer panels are a unique forum giving you and your doctor the opportunity to sit with up to 10, maybe 15 of the world's leading doctors for your specific cancer type. Doctors are invited from some of America's leading cancer institutions, including Yale and Harvard, as well as some of the other leading cancer centres. This unique forum allows your doctor and you, if you desire, to debate and discuss your case on a very personal level for up to 4 or 5 hours. The real advantage of this type of forum is that you have a consensus at the end of it, and thereby negating the situation which frequently occurs when one seeks second opinions, in that you have more than one opposing opinion. The other real advantage of this type of situation is that you can make things happen very, very quickly. So rather than having to travel to different clinics, you can bring all the doctors to one place, and obviously that makes the whole process much quicker. These meetings can normally be arranged within 4 to 5 weeks, sometimes quicker, and are usually held on the East Coast of America, normally in Washington, New York or Baltimore.
I'm Jenny, and I live in central London with my husband and daughter. She's now 15, but when she was only 10 years old, 5 years ago, I had a completely normal, healthy life. I was 47, pretty fit, walked everywhere. Started getting some chest pains, ignored them because, you know, I think you do, you're just busy, you get on with life. I thought I pulled a muscle or something. And then I got very breathless, just running for the bus. I thought, this is a bit odd. So I went to the GP and she said, oh, well, it's probably just an infection, and I had some antibiotics. But a week later, I was finding it difficult even walking without getting puffed out. And I thought, this is ridiculous. And I went to another GP who immediately sent me to hospital, and I had a scan, and to my absolute horror, of course, it was horrific. I was told, well, we found tumours in the lining of your lung, and that's what's causing a huge fluid build-up. We know that they're secondary tumours. What we don't know is where the cancer's coming from. And then there was a terrible month of testing to find out where the cancer was coming from, and I was diagnosed at the end of that month with stage 4 ovarian cancer, which has a pretty ghastly prognosis. It just seemed like a very efficient way of covering all the bases. I think you hear stories of people who've gone to one second opinion, and it's turned out that they've said, oh well, I'm not quite the right person, perhaps you need to talk to somebody else. And I think the idea of having everybody that I could possibly need in one room at one time, just blitzing it, seemed to be a really, really good idea, especially when time is absolutely of the essence. It seemed to happen really quickly. Obviously the thing that takes time is making sure that all the scans and the samples are assembled, and they have to be shipped over to wherever they need to be shipped over. So there was a bit of admin to do, and that felt like it took forever, but was probably only a couple of weeks. They were a very eminent expert panel. They were all of the famous oncologists and radiologists and specialists in the ovarian cancer world. Certainly the best ones that could have been assembled. And I don't think they all absolutely agreed, because they've all got their own views on things, and the one thing I've learned about cancer is that there's not necessarily an answer. But there was this marvellous man who chaired the panel, and he got them all all to create a fantastic plan for me. And I think that was the key, you know, next thing to try this, then try that. If that doesn't work, try the other. And, you know, it would just got me a plan. I felt that I had, you know, something to follow. Well, I didn't actually participate in the panel. Certainly I had did a lot of work beforehand with the hospital administrators, getting the records together and, as I say, organising for the samples to be shipped out, to be tested at various labs all over the States. I didn't really feel up to going because I wasn't very well, and it's quite a long flight. My husband, who just happens to be a scientist, so you know he's quite interested in these things anyway, he did go. And he was very much a sort of obviously sitting on the sidelines and watching what was going on. And part of him was very interested because he's scientific, but part of him was he was really glad to be there and see how seriously they took it all and how passionate they all were about it and how absolutely no stone was left unturned. He said it was a little alarming. There was a huge screen and there was my tumours sort of massive on the screen in sort of lurid pinks and purples, which is fascinating on the one point, but I think I would have found that rather distressing. So I was glad not to be there. I think I sat at home rather nervously biting my fingernails, but yeah, it was good that he went. Do you know what? I can't remember exactly how many were on the panel. I was given a plan of the table, and I think there was the chairman, and then there were about 3 or 4 oncologists perhaps. But they obviously had different cancer specialisms. Some of them were more surgical and some I think were more on the chemotherapy side. And then there was at least one radiologist, and there was others who specialised more in the sort of the microbiology of it. I really wouldn't know, I'm not really au fait with all their different qualifications, and that was the marvellous thing, because I would have never have known how to gather all these people. I wouldn't have known who I needed. That was a marvellous thing. All the right people were there. Well, our friends had had such a good experience with the panel, with their panel, we decided pretty swiftly that that's what we wanted for me. And actually, I suppose, we didn't really give my oncologist any choice in the matter. She's a very confident lady, and I don't think, she wasn't going to stop me from getting a second opinion or be upset that I had. I mean, after all, she delivered some pretty devastating news as far as we were all concerned. And I think she would have been as pleased as anyone to find out that things were not as bad as we'd thought. So she participated very willingly in the whole panel experience. She rang in on the conference call by telephone for several hours on the panel, and indeed one of the panel members, who was actually round the table, was someone that she'd suggested, a former colleague of hers. So she was on board with the whole thing. I don't think she enjoyed it particularly, obviously, because I think implicitly her plan, as it were, was being questioned, but she participated wholeheartedly, and it's been very positive all round. What happened was, armed with the expert opinion, particularly about the scan, she explored other surgical options and in fact found a fantastic surgeon at another London teaching hospital who was quite happy to do the operation that I needed. And so he managed to remove the bulk of the tumours that had been causing problems at that stage, and bought me a huge amount of extra time, quite invaluable. The most important thing it did was put me in the direction of some further surgery, which was crucial, which then enabled me to have some further chemotherapy and so forth. So it did certainly set us on the track of thinking more surgically, and on the strength of that, I think they realised that I'm a tough old bird, and I've had quite a lot of surgery since, and so it's actually I think slightly changed the emphasis of the way I've been treated. You don't know what the best thing is, and I've met a lot of people who've been told, well, you can have surgery followed by chemotherapy, or you can have a bit of chemotherapy followed by surgery followed by more chemotherapy. What would you like? And of course you don't know. You really don't know. So it's very difficult to know what to do, because there's obviously a lot of stuff on the internet, but that's terrifying to even dip your toe into. So I really tried not to Google anything to do with cancer. No, that is a real problem, actually. On the one hand, there's a culture, quite rightly, which doesn't want to just treat you as an object and remove all decision making from you. After all, it is your body. But on the other hand, you want to think that the decisions are being made by people who are equipped to make those decisions. And if you're made to make those decisions in a vacuum, there's always the thought, well, if I choose the wrong thing and it doesn't work, it'll be my fault. And that just adds to the guilt of having cancer in the first place, which is bad enough.